Hey guys, welcome to Untier. It's been a while. We're doing all kinds of crazy recording times because just real life is a bit of a thing, you know. We're both pretty busy people, but that's just how it is, you know. So it's been a little bit. Jad and I are back. We've got a decent amount of ground to cover. So my goal is to keep this not like super crazy long, despite the fact that we have basically 2 weeks worth of stuff to talk about. But we'll see how that goal goes. Hey, Jad, welcome back to the podcast.
What's up, bro? Yeah,
Podcasts.
yeah. It, it's been a while.
Yeah, we are truly gaming again. Okay, so yeah, I was just talking about this before we started, but maybe it's just me. It feels like it's been a really long time since we banned Appleton and the Silvally, the next two Silvallis. Like these guys already feel really old.
Yeah, I mean, we've already gone quite deep into the new meta, let alone talk too much about these old guys as well.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is wild. We got rid of Appleton a week ago. It dropped, and then we nuked it. It was super broken. It was a 9-0 ban. Everyone was like, "Yeah, this thing's real silly. We don't really need to go into it. You couldn't kill it. It would break like everything." No one wanted it around. It was obviously and clearly stupid.
Hmm. Yeah, it was just crazy how you could have something that was unkillable and also the best breaker in the tier both at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, Apple Acid was just like so good. You just keep SPDF dropping every single time, and it's not like acid spray where it's like 40 base power. No, it's like an 80 base power stab grass type attack. It's just shit's real whack. Anyway, we also banned Silvally Poison 9-0. That was not really close. It was like we wanted to have it defensively, but offensively it was just so good because it's the Silvally form left that's like, oh, you wanted to hit toxic and then it just happened to be Silvally poison, or you had like this fighting type that you wanted to hit a move with. Idiot. Now you lose now, stupid.
Stupid.
Stupid. Yeah, because poison was just like the next really good typing. Um
Hmm.
yeah, like it's so nice now. Silvallis are still really good, but not being like, oh, what if they happen to be poison and uh, I can't toxic it or they're immune to toxic. That matters a lot to me. Like their mons will be like, if they pivot in Silvally, I won't be super happy, but I can toxic it, and that's fine. Poison volley, like that wasn't even a thing you could do. Just absolute stupidity.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I mean,
yeah, it's another Silvally.
and more Sylvalis becoming broken. Uh, do I don't know exactly when it's going to stop. Don't think it will.
I don't know. We'll get to that. We'll get to that for sure.
Yeah.
The last one we banned was Silvally Fighting. This was not unanimous. In fact, it only met the minimum threshold: 6 bans versus 3 do not bans. Uh, the people who voted not to ban were basically just like, we're still not seeing a lot of Silvally Fighting. It might end up being fine. Let's just keep it for now. And also, like, we have other fighting types, so you're prepping for Silvally Fighting, and you're also prepping for these other fighting types. Like, I get it. It was not the same level as Poison or Appleton. But Hajad and I were still very much on the like, let's just ban this thing because
Hmm.
it's still a Silvally that just killed everything, and fighting was still just an absolutely amazing type. It's so hard to handle. It's also like pretty fine defensively in that the other ones that we have right now have random really bad weaknesses. Silvally fighting doesn't really have any really bad weaknesses. Like we don't even really have flying types in the tier. It
Yeah, and I mean, like the things that can outspeed and hit it super effectively don't really exist. Like you don't have a fast psychic type that's like really common, apart from like mime, and
hmm.
we don't really have fast birds either. So we don't have birds in general, to be honest. But yeah, those are like two of your main ways of trying to revenge kill it, and then you only really have one like that can hit it super effectively. And even like after a flame charge, Mr. Mime might become just completely invalid because if it's carrying Iron Head as well, that's a completely different you know
Yeah, it's
scenario
it's
going on.
it's the same kind of flips that the other Silvali's had, and maybe we didn't see like the complete natural extension of that like we did with Poison, but it was really getting there. It was very silly, and I didn't see any reason to keep it around. It was still like just flip some coins. Just do it. Robert
Sure.
Alphonse is playing for PSPL right now. Anyway,
Oh, sweet.
so yeah, we banned those things. We did not ban other things, and that's definitely the next topic to get to. So we didn't ban like Crosslow, Glaceon, Poniard. Those got voted on. Whatever. Uh, we also didn't ban some other more important things. There's Phalanx. I think that's the first one we can hit. It got five ban votes, 4 don't ban votes, but you need 6 to ban. So like a majority, but not a plurality, voted to ban Phalanx. And this is a very interesting case. I wish we could have wrangled a do not ban person here, because I would like to hit both sides of Phalanx. It's weird. Like, I'm kind of okay with it being in the meta. It's clearly something that we can handle. It just requires you, like, always packing that strong Phalanx stop. And despite the fact that it hasn't started running the meta like other mons have, I still don't really regret voting to ban it, because it still feels like the same exact things for that we said were going to be needed to prep for Phalanx are needed. It's like you got the Gorgeist or the Marini or like the Random Gloom or something, and otherwise you're just not gonna have a fun time. And it's such a binary Pokemon. It's not super cool.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with Phalanx, it's like it's super good in that like breaking role or like just cleaning up like mid to late game because of no retreat. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, getting that speed boost and then just like omni boosting in general, it's like it makes it really really strong. But also, it's like it becomes quite hard to revenge kill as well. Um, Most people just resort to like Scarf Manectric and Scarf Mr. Mime, but
Yeah, and
you
we
know,
need so much of those. It's like, give me a break, please.
yeah, and like what are you doing at the end of the turn, right? Like you go into your Manectric, you Volt Switch out, and you just go out into your fighting resist, I guess. I mean, if you had a fighting resist that worked, you
Or
would have gone into that in
yeah,
the first
you
place.
sack something, you go back to Manectric.
Yeah, exactly. And how many times are you going to have to clicking Volt Switch and then Thunderbolt and then Volt Switch? And it's like it's just a mess. To be honest, I thought I was quite disappointed when Phalanx didn't get banned, considering we just banned Silvally fighting as well. That could have relieved a lot of the fighting pressure, like the fast fighter pressure that we
Absolutely.
have in the tier. But yeah, things didn't work out that way.
Yeah, and like it's fine. I'll say like no matter what we say about Phalanx, about Double, whatever, I am liking this meta. Like I am having fun, and it's not nearly as super broken as our previous PU metas have. Like I think I really do feel like we've made a substantial jump here. But yeah, it would be nice to just not have Phalanx right now. I do feel like you handle it very differently than you handle the other fighting types, because it's got that speed component and the power of first impression, and the like just the way that you handle omni boosting is just so different to like a bulk up Hitmontop or bulk up throw or that kind of stuff. And I don't like it what it does in the tier. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's not the next Pokemon we'll talk about, which is Double, but it's something. Actually, but no, I lied. Before we hit Double, we should hit Mr. Rhyme, because that's a really weird situation.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Go for it.
yeah, Mr. Rhyme got only 4 ban votes out of 9, so it was not banned. Um, this was one I actually went back and forth over a lot. I was like the very last vote on Mr. Rhyme for a little bit, and I ended up coming down on do not ban, whereas Hajad, you ended up coming down on ban. And
Yes.
I think everyone can have varying positions on Rhyme. It is clear like the only S rank and the best mon in the tier. That I think that I agree with. And I don't really have any qualms about that. Just because it's the best Pokemon in the tier, to be clear, does not mean it's broken. I kind of want Phalanx gone. It's not the best mon in the tier. That's irrelevant. Um, Rhyme does everything, and it's really strong, but I don't feel like it's unfair about it. I don't know. It's
Um,
I feel like my
yeah,
counter-arguments to Rhyme work better responding to things than trying to just argue for not banning it on its own. You know?
yeah. I mean, a couple of I'll explain a couple of my ban reasonings, and you can uh, I guess respond to those. But yeah, my thing with Rhyme was that it allowed you. It was similar to Sylvania in a way where it allowed you to support your Pokemon without really giving up any breaking power. If that makes any sense. Like it's one of the best breakers in the tier, but it can also rapid spin, and you can also healing wish if you want. It can also do calm mind slack off sets, and it can be one of the more dominant breakers over in that regard.
Yeah, and that I totally agree with. It's great in terms of roll compression and just hitting both those things. And it is absolutely hard to deal with. It is difficult to switch into Rhyme. One of the best switch-ins being other Mr. Rhymes as well. Just like mine's packing Shadow Ball, so get wrecked. But I don't know. Is what it does like problematic or unhealthy? And that's not like I said, that's not really something that I can state on my own, other than going like, no, it actually just feels pretty fine with where we're at. It's more like someone else has to say this is why I think it's unhealthy, and then I have to respond and go, no, I'm not feeling it. Um, I guess Rhyme is a Pokemon that is kept in check by a lot of the other really good things we have. It's kind of a product of the meta. Like if we nuked more Silvalis, Rhyme would absolutely get progressively like more and more broken. Um, yeah, I don't know. This one's hard to state, but I very much come down on like you play against a Rhyme. It's like this is kind of fine. You build against Rhyme, and you're like, I'm more or less okay. I don't know. I'm not doing this justice. I know I'm not, but oh well.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Mr. Rhyme, I feel like, for me at least, when I play against it, I feel like it's in a shitty position right now because of the meta, and Mr. Rhyme in a shitty position is an S rank Pokemon, which is kind of scary to think about. The reason why I think it's in a shitty position is that everyone is really stacking up on the faster than Silvally hard breaker things. So like Basculin, Manectric, Scuff Glaceon, Scuff anything that gets above that 317 speed like benchmark. Those are being used a lot more than they probably would be if the Silvalis weren't so all encompassing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say.
Yeah,
So I feel like when you add all that together, like there on any given team at any given moment, there's going to be three Pokemon or four Pokemon that outspeed Mr. Rhyme and then can also hit quite hard. It might feel that Mr. Rhyme is less effective than, or like not that big of a deal when in comparison to I don't know Savali, but when I feel like if the meta continues to develop in a way where it currently is, and it has, like we've seen evidence that the meta has now quite slowed down since our last set of bans. Like we've seen a lot more Gloom, Marini especially,
mm-hmm.
and I feel like if the meta keeps developing in that way, where we start not using the ridiculously fast, yeah, exactly, using that more balanced style of Pokemon, yeah, Mr. Rhyme will just take over in that case. Which
Yeah.
I wasn't comfortable in that scenario as well,
I
given that it
think
was.
I agree. It does absolutely get progressively just better and better. Uh, if we start removing some of the stuff. For me though, that just couldn't change the fact that right now teams kind of are mandatorily good against Rhyme, whether or not it's here, and its presence right now is like not hurting. It's like okay. I think one of the biggest knocks against Rhyme is not just that, but like if we got to this part where we wanted to run a fatter meta, there's not a lot of like adapting you can do for Rhyme that we haven't already done. There's not a lot of random sleeper things that just like happen to really put it in its place. It really is just like pack the faster stuff that's strong. Like there's no random defensive mons that we can really start using because Rhyme is really strong and has all this coverage, and we'll still get to spin and healing wish regardless of what walls it whatever. Um, so yeah, I agree. Down the road, this could be holding the meta back, but at least right now, I don't think it is. And
Yeah, I think one thing you could definitely argue in Mr. Rhyme's favor is that you already do have to really think about ice types in the tier, and that's not going to change whether we ban Rhyme or we decide to keep it. Both psychics and ice types, to be fair. So like we have really hard hitting ice types like Glaceon and Lapras. You also have Beheeyem and Mashana and stuff on the special side, on the psychic side, sorry. So it's like you're gonna have to prep for those Pokemon regardless of whether Mr. Rhyme is in the tier or not.
yeah,
So I mean, it doesn't really change much if it does end up leaving in terms of like the restriction on the builder potentially.
absolutely. And I will say there are other things that have been like I think this is absolutely going to mess up the meta in perpetuity, and I'm willing to get rid of it right now. You know, Silvally fighting, going back to Arctivish or whatever. Um, Rhyme definitely feels different. I can also feasibly see it where it never becomes a problem. I'm not saying it will become a problem. I'm saying it's just a possible direction the meta could go where it does become a problem.
Hmm.
Okay. We should probably hit double now because that's the
Yeah.
interesting one. At the time we voted, when this was Appleton Silvally Poison meta, double was like very strongly not really a problem. It got 2 ban votes. Since then, it has become a major presence in the meta. Not necessarily like broken or problematic, but like it inarguably has become has gone from like clearly not being a huge thing to as big as Phalanx at least. Double is you have the thing that beats double or you just die. You have the fat defensive mon in the back that's like, okay, I can go to my Togetic or whatever, and I can eat the Cotton Guard body press stuff, or I just lost. There's not really much of a mid ground there, and the only thing that's balancing it out is that teams already kind of needed to pack this stuff all the time, and it's not. There aren't many mons that stop it like that, but there are just enough that it's kind of working, and it's kind of not being immediately busted right now. We have like a bunch of random checks. Gorgai Super, Shiinotic, Togetic, Marini, some of the psychics, and the ices and the rhyme, and you can pack faster breakers like Raichu and all this stuff to check it. Savali bug with flamethrower. It like we're barely keeping a hold on it.
Yeah,
If there were
it's
any
like
less of these things, then we'd be screwed.
yeah. I mean, we're definitely papering over the cracks at this point. I'd say in terms of the thing with double, we say I think the biggest concern for me was okay if I'm forced into this scenario where okay I have to use I don't know let's just say Mashana right to take on double. What happens then if somebody manages to core I don't know a double together with like a toxic phalanx I don't know just random Pokemon right and then that Mashana gets toxic and then double comes in with the sub and then starts cotton guarding up and then suddenly your main counter is like gone and then so yeah that's the hard part about phalanx is that not phalanx double is that like if anything happens to your counters it's game over and it's not like okay game over in certain scenarios no it's literally game over like if it manages to sub and cotton guard and maybe even agility
Yeah.
like it's curtains for sure.
Yeah, counterplay is not as much of a like rhyme. It's amazing, but you at least like know that you have ways to play around it. Even if you can't switch into it, it's like oh, I can offensively check it with X, Y, and Z. I can pivot to this and go to this or what. That doesn't exist with double. There's no Yeah, it's how I feel about phalanx too. It's like, oh, omni boosting. I have to do this one very specific thing that I built into my team with like no real opportunity to try anything else, or I die. There are other Pokemon that's like I can handle these in multiple different ways. I can think about like planning, and here's that doesn't exist here. It doesn't, and I still think Double's fine. In fact, right now I don't want to quick ban it. I want to at least wait till drops. I think its presence is clearly like a major defining force. Double plus T spikes as well. That's like pretty notable. I don't want to ban it right now. But that linearity, I think, is the most annoying thing about this mon. Thank you.
Absolutely. I feel
Thank
like,
you for coming
yeah.
to my MZ talk.
Yeah, I mean the thing is with this, it's just yeah, double. It just reeks of Malamar of older gens and
Mm.
just stuff that just wins instantly. Like I can't stress enough how powerful it is to have a Pokemon which just instantly wins. It feels like it feels very much like a Mashana situation from like older gens, like with the barrier, calm mind, stored power thing,
Mm-hmm.
except it has trick room as well, so that it instantly outspeeds everything with agility. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like you can have sure, I mean you can have a dark type to take on Mashana just the same way you can have a ghost type to take on double, but I mean you still need to have that ghost type. Like that's a it's probably one of the best fishes for matchups that we have in this meta, and yeah, its popularity might not reflect like people might not see it as a popular thing to use, but it undoubtedly will fish people like crazy. The same way like people used to use Lanoon in Oras to fish people.
I think people are
People,
aware of double at this point.
yeah, people will be, but like it's the same way like Lanoon wasn't hugely popular in Oras until like I don't
Yeah.
know midway through the meta when somebody just started using it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Same that I feel like double is like it's in that same popularity where it's like okay, not many people are going to use it, but the people who do use it, and if they get the matchup correct, it's just going to be a nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this was big to hit on. If people want to look more at double, there's also that council happenings post that we've started. We're gonna do that like weekly, maybe 2 weeks or whatever. Um, that Akir made, where obviously council is talking about this is double meta. That's the way we kind of described it. It is like the biggest presence, questionable, possibly broken thing that we have. That's what double is, and it's only A plus because like it's still a very linear mon, not just in like how you have to beat it, but in what it can do. Anything outside of like the cotton guard body press stuff is like, it doesn't really change it up very much. Maybe it has some move that hits you ghastly, but aside from that, the random stuff I haven't really seen it be able to effectively pull off a set that beats like the stuff that should stop it. That is actually beating Gorgeist or Togetic or whatever. It can't really do anything about it on its own. It's more about packing knockoff lures, toxic spikes, whatever.
Just offensive pressure, to be honest. Like
Yeah.
I feel like in this meta where it's like if you have spikes and a few breakers, like it doesn't really like you can really force the hand of somebody where it's like okay, well you have I guess let's say Shinotic is your main double counter, right? If I use a Crustle with spikes and then I have like a Basculin to bait that in, like what are you gonna do? You're gonna just go to something else? Like sure, I'll take the free kill. So it'll affect teams and it'll affect playing even inside the game, even if it has like it's not even on the field, like it's not even like cotton guarding up. It
Mm-hmm.
can affect the game via how you play it, just based on like its existence, which is something that only really good Pokemon in a tier managed to ever do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think with that, we can probably hit up the like VR shift as a good way to say like what the council thinks are the top big mons right now. Like we said, Rhyme is an S rank. It's the only S rank. We dropped Throw out of S rank. I think we both of us actually voted against that. We both wanted Throw to stay in S. Um, I'm not too bad. I'm not too down on throw getting dropped. It's not the biggest. Oh no, you were in favor. I'm sorry. Yeah, I still think throw is just really good and should fit on like every team and do everything. But it is also like not really as good as rhyme. I think it's better than A plus, but clearly worse than S. And it's like, which one is the bigger gap? And I thought S is where it deserved to stay, but I actually think public opinion is with you and dropping throw to A plus. So that's a thing.
Yeah, yeah. The thing with throw that I found is that like there's so much offensive pressure in the tier. Like throw finds it really difficult to get like for breaker sets. Why would you use something that has 180 speed when you can use something that has 317 speed, right? And just as effective as a breaker. I feel like people have like moved past that, and now they've concentrated more on like the speed def and phys def throw sets, bulk up, with like rest talk and stuff because they're really hard to kill. But even in those scenarios, like, wow, this sort of just it does nothing in certain matchups. The same way that like type null, to a lesser extent, type null did nothing in certain matchups as well. So it's like
I would never say throw does nothing.
No, because it still has that phasing presence. It's still a good like status absorber. It does loads of things for your team, but on that level, it's like it's difficult to justify when in certain matchups it's quite like it doesn't really do much in comparison to like Mr. Rhyme.
Yeah, apologies. My allergies just started going off. Okay. Yeah. So throw drop down to A plus. A plus is definitely like the biggest good stuffs right now between from S to A really, but A plus got the double, Phalanx, throw, Pondered, Mawile, Gorgai Super, and Behem as well, which I see less of, but also it definitely deserves to be there. Behem, crazy good. Just use more Behem on like everything, and you will not regret it. Going down to A, this is where Crustle ended up. Crustle being one of the new drops. It's like, hey, we have a Smasher now. We have rocks and spikes. Big fat rockers. Like, definitely something we needed. So that's awesome. Both Glaceon and Leafeon. There's Manectric. A Scarf is taken off. Mashana as like the mildly inferior Psychic. Raichu still good. Stone type null. And then the big thing, all three of the big Silvalies right now. So we have 5 Silvalies. 2 of them are rock and ice, which are a bit lower. Oh no, I'm sorry. There's also grass. We have 6. So there's rock, grass, and ice. They're a bit lower. But the 3 big Silvalies right now are bug, electric, and psychic. They all ended up in A. I'm actually disappointed. I feel pretty strongly that bug should be an A plus. Maybe one of the other 2. Maybe psychic as well. How are you feeling about Silvalies? That's the other big topic to get to. You still think they're broken and problematic? Yeah?
I think by now we've made it clear that we have to take them each as they come individually. So let's take them each as they come individually. I think with Silvally Bug, it's quite clearly, I think personally, the most, I don't know how to say it, revolving, like the most restricting
Yes.
Barley out of the rest of them.
Yes.
Yeah, the most restricting team building wise. Because if you look at the rest of the bugs in the tier, it's just
Nothing.
you have what Vespiquen and Charger Bug. So like, why else would you have a bug resist unless you were trying to take on a Savali Bug? Which makes it a really good like breaker/fish. It's really good on like majority of matchups because why would you ever have a bug resist apart from just like coincidentally? Oh look, I have them a while, but it's definitely not for bug.
Yeah, I will say for Silvally Bug, your teams will have a bug resist. Every one of them guaranteed, because that's just the typing bug is. The weird thing is, compared to other Silvallies, is that in the past, it was like they have 3 coverage moves that they might be running, and whatever your team is, there's a really fair chance that like they have the right coverage moves and they break you. Bug is the first one where it really strongly feels like there's a great chance that you have multiple Pokemon and that no matter what coverage moves it's choosing, it's not breaking your team. There's a genuinely really good chance of that, or like that you're just pretty okay versus it a lot of the time. I still don't like the way that it will sometimes just like burst be amazing versus teams. But I do think that is a big difference, just because of like the nature of the bug stab and what that does for you. Did that make sense? Like, so many teams will have multiple bug volley stops that it is actually like common and feasible where I'll see it has the coverage for throw, but then it doesn't also have the coverage for Mawile or something. That's a very basic example, but yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I think also the thing with bug volley, the thing that separates it is the stab U-turn. So let's say you don't have, the coverage that's needed to take on the Mawile and the throw and whatever. You could just stab U-turn, do a good chunk on the way out, and be like, okay, we'll see you next time until those things get whittled. And it's like it's constantly asking that question, like, do you have a suitable bug resist at every point in the match? And the answer has to be yes. Otherwise, it's going to be really difficult to stop, given its speed and then also like breaking power.
Yeah, and the way you really handle this is like now we have a lot better ways to put rocks up and keep rocks up, in my opinion, anyway. Obviously, rhyme spinning is a little knock into that, but even then,
Hatcham really hurt. Hatcham leaving really hurt bug volley.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Oh, I thought you had more. Yeah, no. Rocks being up is like a whole different ball game now. And the offensive pressure that you can put on bug volley, because it's not just for bug volley. It's for like, oh, I want these fast bonds to handle Phalanx. I want it to handle Mr. Rhyme. I want it to handle Smash Crustle. I want it to handle Leafeon. I want it to handle Raichu. I want it to handle some Stonejourner sets. Like, those when all of these mons exist in totality. Oh, I want to be able to outspeed Double. When you've got all these things together, it starts becoming like, well, packing that speed control for bug volley is like already so ingrained, it just doesn't feel as bad. So I think bug volley is really like, to me, it is a clear A plus, and it's closer to S than A rank, in my opinion. I think it's a very good mon. I think it clearly outclasses Psychic and Electric.
I disagree with that. I don't think it outclasses Psychic and Electric. I just think people haven't clocked on to the rest of the bodies yet.
Oh, I mean, I think Psychic and Electric can do a lot of the same things, but I think ultimately Bug is going to be like, oh, that's one I want to do. Because weirdly enough, it's because of the defensive potential, which is so silly to say of a pure Bug type. But, like, actually, when some of the strongest mons in the tier are Mr. Rhyme, our Phalanx, our Double, our Throw, our Leafeon, Mono Bug is like so legit, and that's why I think it'll always have that bigger place. But yeah, maybe not. Either way, yeah, it's really good. I think people underrate that Silvali's are still like a really big thing that we should keep an eye on. But right now, I don't really want to ban any of them immediately. Like, we have all these really, like, Rhyme, Double, Phalanx, and some of the Silvalis. They are all strong potential for, like, suspect test and have community deciding should we nuke them immediately. But I don't feel like any of them are right now going, this meta is actively becoming worse and cancer and unplayable. Like, they haven't hit that level. Whereas Silvally fighting is like, oh my god, we gotta do all this dealing with Silvally fighting is so silly. Appleton, what are you doing about Apple? None of those mons have gotten there yet. And yeah, I really wish that we weren't about to hit like a DLC wave and PUPL and Slam. It would be like just time to like sort this meta out. So that makes it really awkward. But yeah, these mons are kind of okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Why you have to be mad? It's on the game.
Oh man, I mean, I think I agree with you in terms of the fact that there's like a distinction now. There's a top 3 Silvally and now a bottom 3 Silvally, where it's like you have Electric, Psychic, and Bug, and then you have like Rock, Ice, and the other one.
Although I will say we screwed up with the other ones. They are too low. They're clearly like second-class citizens, but we left Silvally Ice in B-. I kind of didn't really realize it till we did the update. It's not a B- mon. They should all 3 of them like should be at least B+, and probably maybe A- for some, but yeah.
Yeah, as I said in like the first VR update, like those Silvalis, if you knock one down, the other one will just come straight up.
So there's no point in just in thinking, oh, wow, right now this is a B minus Pokemon. No, it's not. It functions like
Well,
an
no,
A
like
plus.
being outclassed still means that they should be lower. It's like I'm not going to run Silvally Ice because why? There's all these good ice types in the tier, and they let me use a different Silvally.
Yeah, but that's something else that I've seen quite often now.
I
Like,
know type
oh look,
spam is a
here's
thing, but that's not the same thing. That's not the point. Like the
no, it's
response I see
necessarily
to that
about.
point is, oh, but you can do type spam. Yeah, but not every team is going to be type spam, and there still is a big reason why you don't want to overload on types, especially the types of the Silvallis we have left. Psychic, sure.
Mm,
Bug, you can't really overload. Electric type spam is kind of awkward. Packing multiple ices is automatically weird. Same with rocks and grasses. Like these are some of the more exploitable things that you can have. So yeah, I really don't want to be overloading on ice types for most
well,
teams.
yeah, I'd agree with that almost entirely if this meta was a bit more balanced, like just slower in general. But because we're so offensive, having your own like win condition or having your own way of forcing your like idea on the game onto somebody, that is like crucial now more than it ever has been in any other meta. So whilst I do think, okay, yes, you probably should not be overloading on ice types, or you should not be overloading on like electric types. That's a strategy that you can employ even without just thinking about it. You don't even need to make a team and think, okay, this is electric spam. I'm using Manetric and Silvally Electric, and now I'm building around that. No, it can be like, okay, I have this Scarf Manetric, which is my revenge killer, and then this utility Silvally Electric, which sort of breaks things around Manetric, and then the rest of the team can just function normally and be like its own separate entity. But that spam core in the middle allows you to have an extra avenue of approach. It's like you have to think about it. Or in this meta, I feel like you have to think about it like, okay, when I'm building, okay, how do I give myself a shot at the game in every possible scenario, rather than, okay, this is my plan. How am I going to enact the plan?
Yeah, I don't disagree.
That's what at least I feel like.
I don't disagree. You can do a lot more of it in this unbalanced meta. All of that. It's just, for me, it comes down to like, oh, that's already two Pokemon that don't like give me good offensive pressure on Ponyard, making it that much bigger of an issue or whatever.
Mm, right. Yeah, I mean, I think, I think it's like, for me, it's like, okay, well, if you having a problem then with Pawniard, you can just say like, okay, I'll dedicate this next third slot to a dedicated Pawniard counter, and then we'll see where we go from there. And it's like,
Yeah,
that's
but that's
how
the thing.
I guess how the team. That's how the teams feel like to me
Dedicated,
at the moment, where
dedicated
it's like,
pound, get dedicated counters to things like Poniard or Rhyme is like that's shaky. That's why I don't like a lot of times when I want to type spam, I'm like, oh, both of these things like hard lose to one of these amazing mons that are very hard to stop, and that feels so much worse. It feels like because things are so broken, it feels hard to prep around stuff, which is why I kind of tend to want to run one to like 1.5 things that really lose to a lot of the meta. And type spam doesn't just make you lose to like one of these things. It's like I'll spam ice types. I'm already like double weak to Poniard and most of the fighting types, and that all together in totality, and Scarf Stonejourner or whatever. Like I've type spammed. I've already got two offensive breakers that get hard checked by Scarf Stonejourner, which means I'm gonna have to have like a hard switch into that, and that's already well. Okay, maybe I got to use Palpitoad now, and I don't know. I don't think you can do it on that many teams. That's why I think still a bit constrained there.
yeah, I do think that. I think though that it feeds into the idea that the meta is inconsistent. Just in general, like this is the whole thing with the Valis that I've been arguing since like the start, is that it makes the meta feel more inconsistent because, well, that's like a viable thing we just said about like type spam and then covering off your checks. But yes, there will be those one or two Pokemon offensively that just take out your team. Like I had a problem where I was using electric spam and then Slowbroth brought Palpitoad and Scarf Stonejourner. Or not even Scarf Stonejourner, it was just a Stonejourner, but I didn't have a ground resist because that's how my team was built. And I had the rest of the meta sort of covered, but I didn't really think about ground types all too much. And the result was that I had to make about 1,600 million doubles to get my Manetric in, and then it just sort of collapsed in the end game. But like that's the that's the effect of having a meta where, okay, well, here are these cores that you can build around these certain Pokemon, and
yeah, they don't really have counters, sure, but I mean, like,
Yeah.
the
Okay. I think we get. I think we get. I think we've gotten where you're going, but at this point, it's like, let's cut that off. Well, yeah, it's. I like to ramble too, but I agree with your point. I think it's been made. Other big top things. I think that really covers it. I think we've kind of imparted how we feel about the meta in like this weird broken state, but also like a lot better. It feels a lot more playable, a lot more ability to mess around with things. Like I'm really kind of liking PU, and I really haven't had much time to play. It's fucking school keeps me busy. You're super busy too, but like what I am playing, what I'm watching in kickoff, I'm getting a kick out of this. It's fun and it feels so much more reasonable to mess around with like the Dracloaks and the Toracats and the Linoons and the Togatics and like these random mons, the Meowsticks and the all that. I didn't really feel it before. I was like, why am I really doing this? Good stuff is all I need. And now I at least feel like things can start carving out a niche. Like we have an idea of a meta. I don't know. That's all like really abstract stuff, but I'm at least pretty happy with where we've gotten to.
Yeah, I thought we would have needed to make. I personally did not see a light at the end of the tunnel with the meta about, I would say, a month and a half ago. But after playing this meta, I do think that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's quite close as well. I don't think that we're that far off of a reasonably balanced meta, which is good to see. Like, it's good to see that at least the direction we've taken in terms of bans and stuff has meant that the meta has gotten significantly better since like day one.
I mean, that's just our opinion of as people who are very invested in saying that the council has done the right thing. So I guess you can take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, we're not far off a balanced meta, and even this unbalanced meta. I like some unbalanced metas. Unbalanced metas are kind of cool. This is an unbalanced meta, but not a bad one, I don't think. I'm really kind of having fun. Anyway, speaking of fun stuff, I think we should toss it over to a Jad's Gimmick Corner. And before you do anything, use Torcat. That's been my gimmick. That's been my like low rank thing to mess with. And gosh, Torcat's fun. I just like Parting Shot, dude. It's like a Alolan Persian. That was my shit. Silvalies. Those were my shit. Now in this gen, I feel a little bit bad about using so much Silvalies. I'm like, oh, let's play with some Torcat. Torcat's fun. It's not that good. It's still kind of the same as last gen. It's like, oh, you want to run this pivot that's mono fire and vulnerable to every entry hazard, and yeah. But it works. Yeah. And now in this current meta, it's like double checked. Bug volley checked. Mr. Rhyme checked. Are you fast enough to pivot out on like most of the big threats? Yes. Do you beat most of the Defiant users? I mean, like you beat Poniard and you can burn Phalanx? Yes. Like it's a pretty reasonable mon, I think.
I do like the idea of Torracat, to be honest. It gives me the Incineroar vibes from last gen NU.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's still incredibly mediocre. Like, really mediocre. But it's like I just like Parting Shot. That's all really. Parting Shot's fun. I don't need another reason.
I mean, we'll take it. I have a lot of gimmicks, like more than I usually would, and they're all decent. So I'll just reel them off for you really quickly. So I have 4 attacks, Silvally Electric. So like multi-attack, Flamethrower, Glass Pledge, and you could like choose between either U-Turn or like Ice Beam or whatever. Mm-hmm. But yeah, U-Turn's probably the best one. And usually I like to pair that with a Manectric, just like a Specs or Scarf one, whichever your team prefers.
But if you're pairing it with Manectric, I'd be running Ice Beam just to hit, like, if you run to Vibrava, it's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, I mean, that's the option. Like, depends how much you're struggling with Vibrava, but, like, yeah, that's like a really solid spam core that I found that really just sort of, like, takes on, just says, like, 95% of the meta, I'm pivoting on this. don't worry about it, and the rest of the team will clean up soon. Don't worry about it.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's a really cool mod. Something that I've also been messing around with is Specs Mr. Rhyme with Rapid Spin and Healing Wish. So you have the power of like a 2 attacks Specs Mr. Rhyme, and to be honest, you're only really using 2 or 3 of your moves with your
Yeah.
breaker, so you're not really losing that much.
Yeah.
And then obviously Rapid Spin to get rid of hazards, and then Healing Wish is just broken, so do that. Also really helps with the other Sylvalis in the late game, so yeah, that's a really good Pokemon for doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, other things. Choice Banded Zwylos, that I like Zwylos just in general, and people are now running more, I think, are running more Spadef Mowiles just to take on Mr. Rhyme a bit easier. So it's like, okay, Zwylos can just superpower it and do a chunk, and if it is Fizdef, you know your Rhyme or whatever special attacking Ice type or whatever you have on your team is going to get through Mawile quite easily. And if not, I mean, you find out that it's especially defensive. That's really good. That means your Zwylos next time comes in, just kicks Crunch and cleans things up. So yeah, that's a good thing. Glue, I'm using Growth Glue as like the filler. I know other people use other things in the filler slot. But
Drain Punch for Poniard.
Yeah, Drain Punch for Poniard is
Hell
actually
yeah.
legit. But yeah, growth for me has been like, I like personally fat Pokemon that can perform like a win condition of some sort, like Gloom setting up growths. Like in previous gens, it was like Trick Room Mashana and Trick Room Jellicent, like stuff like that. Things that can pose long-term threat, not just like not just by sitting there, but just sort of like imposing themselves on games. I like those types of Pokemon. So yeah, Gloom fits into that. Another Pokemon that fits into that mold is Pupitar. So like,
Yeah, this is the one where you're gonna lose me because I still just don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, with Pupitar, you can run Stealth Rock Rest, and then you can have like either Double Stab or Dragon Dance Earthquake. So if there is a scenario where somebody has lost their main like check to Pupitar, you can start really trying to abuse it with the Dragon Dance and then clicking Earthquake really, really effectively. But yeah, the thing with Pupitar is nice that you have like a normal resist, you have like a Volt immunity, which is big. Yeah, and you have a few things that it can check. It's also got a nice Fizdef for an Eviolite Pokemon. So yeah, that thing.
Yeah.
And I think the final thing, if it'll load. Okay, yeah, the final thing is like Hex, just in general. To be honest, I've been messing around with like
use Hex. Yeah, T-Spikes are big right now. T-Spikes are real big.
Yeah, there was a Hex team that I built with Spadef Pinkachin, with T-Spikes on that, because it can force out the Marini quite consistently. So yeah, you can just hit T-Spikes and then not really worrying too much about the T-Spikes absorbers, because you can just switch back in your Pinkachin on the T-Spikes absorber. Yeah, and then I paired that with like a Scarf Ghastly with Hex, and it's really powerful. Like quite powerful to the point where it's like, okay, this is actually quite impressive. And other thing that I haven't tested though, which I want to test a lot, is like Specs Lampent with Hex as well. Just as like a really powerful breaker that can try and get past things. But yeah, I think maybe it'll end up being that like electric terrain plus like T-Spikes will become like quite a big thing.
I mean, I think anything T-Spikes right now is just real big, because without the potential for Silvally to be like, oh, I'm poisoned, your T-Spikes are useless. Now, unless people are also running a fat team with a poison, which typically is they're also using a T-Spikes team, they tend to go up. They tend to be strong. And how do you remove that? It's got to really be the spin rhyme for the most part. Although still, like, Togetic's a thing, Vespiquen's a thing, but for the most part, it's a lot of spin rhyme. Hitmontop, I don't really see Hitmontop spinning, like, ever. It's always offensive stuff, because it's way better, because spin Hitmontop sucks.
Yeah, dude, that's the one thing that's freaked me out about Hitmontop so far in this meta, is that, like, I've played about 10 Hitmontops, and none of them have been the defensive spin set. And I was like, wow, I was expecting that set to be the most popular thing. But, yeah, it just isn't. Like, I've seen so many more offensive sets.
Yeah. I mean, part of it is, like, our only real like big offensive rock type, because like Crustl's more hazards and stuff, is Stonejourner, and he crashed just so much to any Hitmontop set. So it's really not that good at beating offensive rocks, which at least in my opinion is like one of the big things. Also offensive steals, we don't really do much of that.
Yeah, I mean we have pawn, but that's it.
Yeah, and you defiant the
Clang.
pawn, and that's not that's a problem. And Clang, you can't even defiant. Anyway, this has been a long, nice, meaty episode. I think we had a couple weeks of stuff to go over. That's perfectly fine for us to be at like the 50-minute mark. Thanks everyone for tuning in. In conclusion, P is pretty cool. Go mess with some stuff. Like, I haven't had the time to do stuff, but I do have a list of things. Like here, if I had the time to actually make things, is what I'd want to build with. Hopefully, I'll actually like get to make them before I have to play for kickoff. Probably not. Yeah, go mess with stuff. Go use the big threats. Go use the little threats. Go play some PU. Big stuff's coming. The Slam, PUPL, all that stuff. It's great. It's a great time to play this meta. Thanks for listening, everyone. Hey, Jad, any final thoughts? Nope, I didn't think so. You can shut up now.